Hello hackers, welcome to the new challenge where we are going to hack exploiting NoSQL operator injection to extract unknown fields from Web Security Academy. So in this lab we have a user lookup functionality that it's powered by MongoDB NoSQL database that's vulnerable to NoSQL injection. And to solve the lab, all what we have to do is to connect as a careless user. But we have a trick in here. Let me see the tip. So as you can see in here, we are not going to base our attack to find the careless password, but to find a hidden field called password reset token. And based on this attack, we are going to use one of the specific operators in MongoDB. So let's go to MongoDB documentation, exactly inquiry and projection operators, and let's scroll down until we found the evaluation. And here we go, now you can see it. We are going to use the where operator. So these operators give us the possibility to run a JavaScript code inside the query. And this is very powerful tool, make us able to use a JavaScript so we can use it to find the hidden field using the blind injection. And here we go guys, so without further ado, let's start. And here we go, let me activate Foxy Proxy. As you can see, I'm using Community Edition, so feel free to use Professional Edition, and it's very recommended for this lab. And here we go, now let's go to the proxy, enter spec twice, and go to HTTP history. So let me go to my account. And as you can see, I have two functionalities in here. So the first one is the login itself, and then we have this forget password. So let me try to use careless, and let me write a random password in here, and let me log in. And here we go. Now let me go to the post login, and let me see if I can bypass the authentication. Let me send this to repeater, and let me see. And as you can see, it's using a JavaScript code. So let me try to bypass it, use it one of the previous techniques. And here we go. Now I'm going to add not equal operation. And this is definitely not equal to empty string. And here we go. Now, as you can see, we have two handler status. So let me see the render in here and see what's the difference. And here we go. Now we have that the account locket, please reset the password. So now I can check that the current password is no longer available, which means even if I know the current password, I cannot bypass the authentication. So let me try to reset the password. Let's go to the forget password in here. And here we go. Now you can see we have please enter your username or email. So in case I don't know my target's email, let me say Carlos in here. And here we go, let me submit. And here we go, now you can see, please check your email for reset password link. And definitely I have no access to this email, so I can reset the user's password. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use this where operator. So let me click on it and show you what we have in here. So as you can see, in the where we are able to use a string and contain it JavaScript. So we can use this where to write whatever we want using JavaScript. So let me see if I can inject this where operation in this object. So first let me go to my VS Code so I can show you step by step what I'm going to do. So let's imagine in the backend we have db.user.find1, and then we have an object, and this object is absolutely what we see in here. So let me write in here user info in here, and then let me try to create this user info. And here we go. Now let me copy this object. And here we go. So now it will be looking like this on the backend. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to break this find one method using the where operation. So let me show you how. So let's say $where, and this is going to contain JavaScript code and especially a function. So let's say function in here. Now what I'm trying to do, let me try to see if I will return false in here or return 0, what's going to happen. So let me just copy it. And here we go, and let me inject it in here, and let me see. Okay, now I can see we have invalid username or password. Let me try to return true. So this is return false. Now let me try to return true and see. And here we go. Now I can notice that the error message is absolutely changed, which is this is the indicator that I'm going to base my attack with. Now the attack is going to base to this error message. So let's say check the error message. So if it's true, which means we have account locked, and if it's false, we have invalid username and password. So now we verify that this JSON is absolutely vulnerable to NoSQL injection, and especially for this operator. So the first step, I'm going to find the hidden input, which has the reset password token. So the first thing I'm going to do is to find the hidden field name, and then I'm going to find its value. So to do this, let me just copy this payload and let me show you how we can do it. So in case that this is a JavaScript code, I can use condition in here. So let me remove this one and let me use the if condition. And then let me use object.keys. So before moving forward to this payload, let me show you what this function do. So let me back to my browser, and in here I'm going to open the console log. So let's go to the console. And by the way, I'm not trying to hack MongoDB. All what I'm going to do is to use the console from the browser. First, let me back to VS Code. Let me copy this object. And now let me back. So let me paste it. And now I'm going to use one of the predefined objects in JavaScript, call it object, and then I'm going to use its method keys. And in here, it requires an object reference. So let's say user info, and here we go. And now you can see it returns me an array of fields in here, which is the username, password, and where. It's exactly what in this object. So in case that this is an array, I can interact it like it an array. So let's try to access to the first field, call it username, and let me use the 0 value. And here we go. Now I got string of user value. And now let me try to access to the last one, which is the index of 2. And here we go. Now I access to the where. And now let me try to access for invalid index. Let me put 20 in here. And as you can see, it gives me undefined. And here we go. So this is the logic that we are going to base our attack with. So let's say object keys, and then I'm going to access to the first field. So let's say 0. And by default in MongoDB, the first field is always -id, which is object of ID. So let's put in here random character. So in every document in MongoDB, always start with a -id. So I'm going to test if I will see if I can access to this -id. And now in case that I cannot see the output, so I'm going to use a blind attack so I can verify that the first one is -id. So I'm going to use method call it match. And in here it take regular expression or string. So let me say -id. And if this is correct, it's going to return true, else it's going to return false. And how I can access to this object and this keys method that needs a reference of an object. So let me back to the documentation in here. If you read this line, you can see we have a reference of document JavaScript expression or function using this or object. So I prefer using this. So let me back to my payload and let me write this. And here we go. Now let me copy it and let me paste it in here and let me test. And here we go. Now you can see we find the account log, which is mean correct. So the first field in here is -id. So let me verify if the second one is username and the third one is password. So let me say the value of 1. So let me make it more bigger so you can see. And here we go. Now let me access to the next one. And in here we have the username. And here we go. It's the username. Now let me see the second one, which is the password. And here we go. Now let me see the fourth one. And let me just put a random character in here. And here we go. This is invalid. So maybe this is our target. So let me see if there is another hidden field or not. Let me put 4 in here and let me send. And here we go, now you can see we have internal server error, which means we only have one hidden field. So now if you are familiar with NoSQL injection, so you will be definitely know what is the next step. So the next step is to find the hidden field name, but before doing this, we have to find its length to make it more easy on the test. So let me copy this payload again, and let me show you what we are going to do. So in case that we know the hidden field index, which is a 3, so this is definitely gonna be 3. So now I'm going to replace this match function with a length and then double equal to 1. So let me copy it and let me paste it over here and let me see. And this is definitely not 1, so let me send it to intruder. And here we go, now let me clear. Now let me select the 1 value and let me go to the payload and I'm going to use numbers, let's say from 0 to 25 and step with 1 and let me start the attack. And as you can see guys, now all the lengths are equal to 3500, but only this one is equal to 3514. And if I go to the response render, you can see we have this account locked message. So definitely the length is equal to 11. And here we go. Now let me discard this one. So we found the length is 11. So now I'm going to find the field name. So let me copy this payload. And here we go. Now I'm going to replace this length with a match method. So let me say match. And now I'm going to use a regular expression. And here we go, which is the first character equal to 1. And here we go. Now let me copy all this payload. Let me back to the repeater and let me replace it in ANSI. And here we go. And as you can see now it's invalid, which is the first character in this hidden field. It's not A, so let me send it to intruder. And here we go, let me clear and let me select the A value. So be careful, only select the A value. And now let's click add. Let's go to the payloads. And now I'm going to add all the characters in my keyboard. And as you can see, now we have 26. So now I'm going to add all the capital letters. And here we go. And now I'm going to add a specific character. And I'm going to add digits number, so from 0 to 9. And here we go. Now let me start the attack. So let me back to the position. And here we go. Now you can see the first value is U. So let me put U in here. Let me close this one. I don't need to continue attacking. And let me move forward to the attack. And here we go. And here we go. Now you can see the next one is N. So let me close this one. Let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now we have L in here. Let me close this one. And let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now we have O. So I think it's in lock or something. And let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now we have C. Let me close this one. Let me start the attack again. And we have a K in here. Let me close this one. Let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now we found it T, capital T. And here we go. Let me close this one. Let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now it's O. I think it's in lock token or something. And let me start again. And here we go. Now it's K. And now we need only 2 characters. And here we go, now it's E. Let me close this one. And let me start again. And here we go, now it's N. And here we go, guys. Now we finally found the hidden field name. So let me close this one. I don't need it. So it's in lookup token, which has 11 character. So the hidden field name is in lookup token. So now the next step that we are going to do is to find this in lookup token value. But before starting the same attack as the previous one, we have to find its length. So let me copy this payload, and here we go. So let's try to find in log token field value. So let me replace this one, and here we go. Let's say this. So let's say this in log token. Let me copy it, and I'm going to use the previous intruder in here. So this one, let me back to the position, and here we go. Now let me replace it in here. Let me clear, and let me select the one value, and let me start the attack. And here we go. Now we find that it's 16 in here. So let me close this one. So the value length is 16 in here. And now let's try to find its value. So let me copy the payload again. And now I'm going to use match method. So let me copy it from here and let me replace it. And here we go. Now let me copy it. And let me back to the other intruder that we tested, which has all the characters. And let me paste it over here. And here we go. Now let me clear. And now let me select the A and let's click add. Let's go to the payload. And as you can see, we are going to make the same test as we finding the hidden field. And here we go. Let's start the attack now. And here we go. Now the first character is A, so I don't need to continue the attack. Let me close this one. So it's A. Let me start again. And here we go. Now we have D. Let me close it. And let me start again. And here we go. Now the next value is 5. And here we go. So one of the tips, guys, that I want to show it for you. So we can test if this value using only digits or using only characters. So we can go to the repeater in here. Let me just copy this payload and let me show you how we can do it. So we can just test it and using the regular expression to check if it's using only the digits or it's using only the characters, using -d and capital D. So let's test it with the -d, which means using only digits. So let me copy it from here. Let me paste it and let me see. And as you can see now, it's a count lock, which means it uses digital characters. So let's see if it uses other characters using the capital D, and let me send. And here we go, now it's correct. So now in your future test, guys, you can just start with this one. You can check if it uses only digits or only characters to make your test very fast. But in case that I do digits and characters, I don't need to make any change in my payload. So let me start the attack again and let me see. So now let me continue my attack, and here we go. Now you can see we're using D. And here we go. Now let me close this one. And let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now it's B. So guys, if you feel that this is a little bit boring, you can try to write your own script to make your test is more fast. But in this video, I'm not gonna do this. And here we go. Now let me continue the attack. Now we have D in here. And here we go. Now we have another B. And let me close this one. And let me start the attack again. And here we go. Now we have E. I don't need to continue this attack. Let me close it. And let me start again. And here we go, another B. And let me close this one. And let me start the attack. And here we go, another E. And let me close this one. And let me start the attack again. And there we go, now the number is 1. So let me close this one. And let me start the attack again. And here we go, now it's B. Close this one. And here we go, now it's 9. Let me close this one. And let me start the attack again. And here we go, now it's 7. And here we go, now it's A. And let me start the attack again. Now we are looking for the last value. And here we go, now the last value is 2. And we finally found the hidden token. So let me copy it. Let me close this one. And let me just put it in here. So this is the hidden value. So now how I can use this hidden token to reset the careless password. So let me back to the lab. And here we go. Now let's go to my account. Let me go to forget password. And here we go. Now let me go to my proxy. So let me check the forget password endpoint and let me send it to repeater. So now let me send the request. And in case that I can see only the HTML code, so let me go to the render. So now what I'm going to do, I will see if this input is responsible to reset the password. So now let me send it the query and let me say if token equal to 1 and let me send and see. And here we go, nothing has happened. Let me back to my VS Code. Let me copy this hidden field. And here we go, let me paste it in here and let me send. And as you can see, we have this invalid token. So let me give it the valid token. Let me copy it. And let me paste it in here. Let me check. And here we go, guys. Now we can see that I'm able to write a new password. So let me copy this endpoint and let me back to the lab and let me replace it in here. And here we go. So now let me just write a random password. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let me submit. And here we go. Now let me try to connect as a careless. So let's say careless and password of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here we go. And here we go, guys. Now we finally solved the lab. So I hope that you learned how to find a hidden field and its hidden value. So I hope that you learned how to use this where operation to run your JavaScript code so you can access to some sensitive data in the database. And here we go, guys. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And if you have any question or you need any help, all what you have to do is to put it on the comment below and stay tuned for the next videos.